All right, well, I am super stoked to welcome the amazing medium Nicole. She is an evidential psychic medium, a teacher, and an intuition business mentor, and a fabulous human being. And so, welcome to the podcast, Nicole.
Oh my gosh. Thanks so much for having me, Claire. So awesome to be here. I'm so
Oh,
excited.
love it. Love it, love it, love it. So, I want to talk a little bit today about your origin story. One thing that I really love that I know the listeners love is I love to hear how people came to this work. And so I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You chime in of which, your answers, the ones that you find best. Also, any of the stories that you think people will be really interested in, right? We love the details of it. And I
Mhm.
really want to know what did the tonation and the color and the experience of you coming to this work look like? And anything that we touch upon, you go ahead and extrapolate and expand through your work as psychic mediumship, and you take it where you want to. This is a conversation. This is about knowing about your origin story, and we're going to take it as two psychic mediums talking shop where we want to
Mhm.
and where we think really the interesting tidbits for people are. So, I guess my first question is let's take it back to childhood. One thing
Okay.
that I really love asking psychic mediums is were there little things that you noticed as a child, either loud and big? Some stories you hear of, I would constantly
Mhm.
see ghosts or spirits at the end of my bed. When can you remember anything of your childhood experience where when you look back now, you're like, yeah, that was definitely a supernatural experience?
Oh, that's such a good question, Claire. And I know you're going to have them the entire podcast episode too. I will be 100% honest with you that I was turned off as a child. So
Mhm,
I grew up I'm the third child. I have two older
mhm,
brothers
mhm,
in a very, very small household, lower
mhm,
middle class. And
mhm,
so we were kind of on survival mode. And also,
mhm.
I was raised in the Catholic Church as well. So there was no appetite
Mhm.
for tarot cards in the house. Like that was
Right,
evil, right? There
right.
was no appetite for any sort of metaphysical work in the house. So I'm going to
Mhm,
say I haven't had a lot of experiences as a child at
mhm,
all,
mhm.
especially because life was so busy with, five people in the house and cats and
Sure.
everything. So no, I guess I was completely closed off and not open to spirit at all as a child, but it's really
And
interesting. It's
it's
really
super
interesting.
interesting. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, some of the most fascinating psychic mediums I've ever met say the same thing. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, people who have been seeing, fairies and spirits in their gardens or seeing, loved ones who have passed, like, of course, that's around. But some of the most fascinating psychic mediums I've come across were never really aware, right? Or it was there, but they were never like really deeply tuned in. Now, was there anything when you got a little bit older
Hmm.
where maybe things started to like click in place and even subtle, where when you look back now, you're like, you know what? That might have been like a little breadcrumb, or that person that came into my life or introduced this idea, like that was a different experience. Like, was there anything of your journey that you can remember of that happening or transpiring?
Ooh. Oh, I've never talked about any of these. So I remember being fascinated by tarot cards when I was like 12 years old. My friend had them, and we would go to like the local bookstore, and they literally had them in a glass case. Like you couldn't even
Wow.
touch the cards. They were in a
Wow.
glass case where you had to ask somebody to unlock the case. And I remember looking at them and being like, oh my god, I want them, but I know that they're evil. I can't touch them, right? So there was definitely that. And I would
Mhm.
say it's so I had a friend probably in second grade. I mean, I'm going way the fuck back there.
Yeah,
um
that's what we
that
want.
believed in fairies, and she believed that there were fairies all in this beautiful rock garden. And she was a lovely, I remember her name. She was
Mhm.
a very lovely woman, or girl at the time, but I remember her telling me these stories about these fairies. And now when I tap back into that energy, I feel it. I
Yeah.
feel the energy of the fairies. And then I felt the energy of the fairies, and I was like, she's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And like
I
I'm like, I can't be friends with her. She's nuts.
know.
So I would say spirit probably had repeatedly shown themselves to me, but my human
Mhm.
3D programming continuously said like, nope, absolutely not. My religious background, my family life was like, no, absolutely not. You are not turning that on. You are not opening that door yet.
Mhm. I love it though, and whenever I ask that question to psychic mediums, if they really put their mind back, there's always these little things, right? There's
Mhm.
always the little hints that when they look back, they're like, oh, you know what? That probably was a little sign. I think they're little breadcrumbs, right? And I think they're
Yeah.
little anchor points even, even like when you were describing like, the second grade, your friend, or like the 12-year-old
Mhm.
friend where you both were interested in tarot. I think these are little soul friends in our soul group that allow us, like, they open up the door just that little bit, right? And they
Mhm.
allow us to like vibe and energetically connect to those things. That's wonderful. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Now, my next question too that I love to ask psychic mediums is when, let's teenagehood, early 20s, were there
Yep.
any like films or TV shows that you loved to watch where you were like, okay, that was definitely the psychic in me and the medium in me like turning on?
Oh yeah. So even though I grew up very Catholic and religious, my mom was, I'm gonna say, more of the spiritualist side of the house. And so
Okay.
like we just grew up Catholic. We went to church. I went to CCD, First Communion, all that jazz and everything.
Yeah.
However, my mom always had this belief that like the church is flawed and like where we
Mhm.
are, there's a lot of, not great things that happen with
Right.
priests and boys, right? So
Right.
so she grew up in that church, and
Yeah.
so she saw the flaws in the church. So she's always been one that was a little more expansive, like not thinking that the church is always the best way, but it's the best we have available at this time. So
Very
she,
interesting. Mhm.
so interesting, right? So growing up, we went to church, but then she would also watch all of the mediumship shows on TV, right? So it was so interesting going to like CCD and
Mhm.
learning about God and heaven and Jesus and how like we go to the other side and it's ultimate paradise.
Mhm.
And then at the same time I'm watching these mediumship shows growing up and being like, what do they do? Like, what do
Yeah.
they do all day long on the up? Did you really just live once, die, go to heaven, and like come back and talk to us? Like this, I'm like, what is the point? There
Mhm.
has to be something bigger than this. So it's really interesting because I definitely was obsessed with all of the mediumship shows. No, definitely not paranormal. Definitely can't watch horror movies. Still
Right.
can't to this day.
Me
But
either.
it was all about the love and the connection,
I mean,
and I would watch those shows and
mhm.
I would cry. Like I would sob watching these shows. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like
Right.
as soon as like they'd have a connection and you'd see some, like I would cry more than the people receiving the reading on the TV shows.
Right. Right.
So that was definitely my like probably my biggest flag that something was probably up
Yeah.
with
Right.
being connected to spirit.
Absolutely cool. I love and like the juxtaposition of your mom like taking you to church, but also like dropping that seed within your awareness of, look, it's all right to question it. Some of this isn't all that it's adding up to be, and certainly not what's on surface level. And that she would still watch the mediumship shows. I love it. I really
Mhm.
think that these are little just placeholders that our soul, but also our soul team and our guides like place along our path, right? Along our little
Mhm.
path, all that we're going. Like when I was younger, like grew up in the country. I also have two older brothers. I'm the youngest, I'm the
Yep.
girl. And we would go to my grandparents because they had cable. We were out in the country. And I
Wow.
would become like transfixed when I watched the show Bewitched. I was like, wait a second, this is
Yeah.
cool. Do you mean
Yep.
she can use like her power and her awareness to be able to like shift into the other room and have something happen? So when I look back now, I'm like, yeah, okay, that was like the little bit of the psychic sense being awakened because mine is a similar story. I think I really identified it when you said when your bio on your website, the doing mediumship readings was very far from your imagination of what you would be doing with your life, right?
Mhm.
When did you
100%.
actually have that feeling? Like when did you like I guess my question
Oh,
really is when you look into like your first psychic mediumship reading, when was
yeah.
that kind of like, oh my God, yeah, this is actually real and this is something I'm gonna do?
So this is oh, I ooh, that's a really good question. I hadn't connected those two dots before. I'm going to have my team like walk me through this.
Go for it. Anytime.
So I didn't know I could do this, period.
Right.
So the story of that is very interesting because my son
Mm-mm.
at 8 years old could see spirit with his eyes. Like,
Okay.
and I'm not just
Wow.
talking like, okay, like this, like it had happened for years. Like he started to tell me at age 5 he could see these shadow people. And I asked him to draw it at age 5 and he drew the Minecraft guy. And I was like, well, I mean, like he's probably just got a really good imagination. So
Mhm.
I literally pushed it off for like 2 or 3 years. And I was just like, it's fine, it's normal, whatever. And then he wouldn't let it go. Like he kept telling me he's seeing these shadow people. It got to the point where he was terrified to be alone in our house. Like we don't live in an old house. This is not like an ancient, it was built in 1981, right?
Mhm.
And so it's not like there's tons of energy here.
Right.
Like there was one person who lived here before us. And so it just didn't make logical sense. We tried everything we possibly could to get him to stop being afraid in our
Mhm.
own house. And ultimately, I was at my wits' end and I called the medium that I had seen a couple times. And I'm like, listen, could it be that he's actually seeing shadow people? And she's like, oh yeah, like yes, there are shadow people in your house. There are spirits in your house. And I'm like, oh, okay. So what do I do about that? And she said,
Mhm.
well, you're a medium. Why don't you just go figure it out yourself? And I'm like, what? Say, and she's like, you didn't know? You didn't know that you were a medium. And I was like, no, I had no freaking clue.
Mhm.
Um, so that's how I found out I was a medium. Is the medium I went
Right.
to told me I was one because my son could see spirits with his
Hilarious.
eyes. And then she's like, well, if you don't know what you're doing, I conveniently have a class that's starting next week. Come and join me. And it's an 8-week mediumship class. I'll teach you how to do it. And I swear to God, Claire, in the first freaking class, once she told me how to connect and I
Mhm.
actually opened up,
Mhm.
there they
You
all
do it.
were.
That's right. I tell you, every medium that I talked to where they were like, I never imagine I would ever do this work. I was never
Yeah.
aware of it. It is so, I mean, it's every story is unique, but I hear
Yeah.
it so often. I just opened the door, Claire, and suddenly I could do it. And it's
Yeah.
so meaningful because I think that as souls, there's a reason why it's delayed. And I don't mean, oh, we've got to learn this or that. I really think that how do you mind me asking how old you were
Yeah.
when that unfolded?
Oh gosh. So that was 5 years ago. So 36 or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
And that is like precisely like what I have found through asking people about their origin stories is it happened around their mid 30s, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it was a door that was opened and they were able to bring all of that life experience that they had of as a young adult, as an adult, working in the world, learning about people, interacting with souls, that they bring such a nuance to the work when their soul has like accumulated all of that human interaction. So there is something deeply positive that I love about when someone opens themselves up to the work in their mid 30s, right? And there's something
I
special
com-
about that age.
I completely agree with you. And I think it's really the age as women in particular that we stop buying into the bullshit that we bought
Super
into for
true.
most of our lives so far. And I'm 99% sure I would never be in this work if I didn't have kids because my
Yeah,
kids opened me up. Like my son
very.
literally showed me the way.
It's true.
Um, and so I think there's something about once if you decide to have kids or not, like there's just something about that age where you stop playing the game. You start realizing that all the cards are stacked against you. Why am I bothering with this game called life, working in corporate? And you start really seeing life for what it actually is. And so and I can't agree more with you, Claire, because I would not have been able to open my business, right? This was 5 years ago. I found out I was a medium, open my
Right.
business, quit my corporate job as an executive in private equity, nonetheless, right?
Right.
Like be now in a best-selling author, podcast, top 10 podcast in the world. Like I wouldn't be able to do all of this so
Right.
fast if I
Right.
didn't have all of those skills from 20 years in corporate America.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
I would be floundering. I would like,
Yeah.
because now I've worked with operations teams, I worked with executives, I've presented in front of hundreds of people, right? Like I've had presentation skills. I know how to do video
Right.
conferences.
That's
All of
right.
these skills are a direct
Huge.
correlation of the skills I need
Huge.
as a medium. Isn't that so weird?
It is weird and somehow so harmonic as the
Yes.
human experience goes. It's like
Hmm.
think of all of the, is particularly in your field, all of the individuals that you learned about and interacted with on a human level to be able to
Hmm.
bring that experience then to a soul communication level. Like, because that's the point why we're here. We're here to live a beautiful human life. We're here to experience the human, but remember that we are a spiritual one. So bringing all of that craft to the work, oh man, exceptional. It's funny, it's also what makes a great teacher, also what makes a
Mm,
wonderful teacher, because when we're 20 we're like we don't know what we want. When you're in your
yeah.
30s you at least know what you don't want, and you don't want to buy into the mirage, as you precisely put it. And then when
Hmm.
you rock up in your 40s as like a woman, you're like, all right, I know what I want now, I know what I don't want,
Hmm.
and I'm ready to go. So I love that
Yes.
that unfolded for you in that manner. And wow, incredible. Now, does your son, he would be a little bit older now, does he still see
He
spirits?
just turned 12. So he can.
Mhm.
I've encouraged him to not bother, not worry about it, and like shut it
Right.
off, because I taught him how to turn it on and turn it off. And he's 12. Like go
Right.
enjoy like having
That's
crushes on
right.
girls and playing soccer.
That's
So
right.
so he can for sure. And honestly, I think it's happening more and more. I think it's pushing on him.
Mhm. Sure.
So
Sure.
I would say yes, for sure. What is so interesting though is that my daughter, who's 2 years younger than him,
Mhm.
fast follow, because she can do pretty much everything that I can, like it at 9 years old. And
Yeah.
so it's so wild. And I think the most interesting thing, when you're a parent, because you have
Mhm.
your first kid and you're like, oh, did I fuck him up? Like, oh, did I totally ruin this kid?
Yeah.
And then you have
Of
a second
course.
kid and you realize, oh, it's all personality. Never mind, I didn't do anything wrong. But it's the same with mediumship. It's the same with the spiritual work, because my son can see them. So he has the clairvoyance really strong. My daughter can hear them. She has
Oh,
clairaudience really strong. I am a clairsentient. And claircognizant. So I feel and know. So each of us has our own way that we naturally pick up on spirit.
that's so cool. A family of
Yep.
clairs. I love it.
Hmm.
That's
It's
so cool.
wild.
It's
It's
wild.
wild.
And, they are a different generation. And so they bring like a different evolution and level of consciousness. And to see that weave into their abilities, like, I'm here for it. That's the reason I am here and incarnated. Oh, I love that, Nicole. That's awesome.
Hmm.
I wanted to speak with you about the experience with your son, and that's fabulous. I love how you said, can you draw it? Because my son had a similar experience on the morning of his seventh birthday. We were,
Wow.
I'll tell you the story really quickly just because I
Yeah.
love these stories and I think our listeners will love it too. I just got out of the shower. I was getting ready to go to work. We were getting ready, to do little cupcakes for him to take to school. And we're in the living room, my husband and I and my son, and we're all talking. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go get dressed, let's get the cupcakes ready to take to school. And I see him go like this. And there is, we live in a city, and there is a long corridor that goes back to the back of the house because it has two entrances because it was built in the 1800s. And
Hmm.
so I see him go like that, follow his eyes, and he looks down the corridor, and I just see him watch and go, like just shocked and stunned. And I'm like, buddy, like, what do you see? And he's like, I just saw somebody walk down the hallway and they went into your back office. And I think they went out the window, to be honest. And then he was like super far away. And I'm like, "Whoa." And at this point, I'm a psychic medium, but I'm not really giving professional mediumship readings at that point. So I'm
Yeah.
aware, right? I'm aware. And so I was like, okay, buddy, like, what did you see? He was like, well, mommy, he was wearing the what you wear when you come out of the shower, a robe. And I was like, a robe. And I was like, could you draw it for me?
Hmm.
And just like you said, it was funny how you said that. And he drew a picture that mommy was in a robe, he had long hair, and there was a patch that was sewn on the robe. And I was like, could you draw the patch for me? And he drew like the intricate picture of this symbolic picture of, I can't, it was one half of a rainbow, there was a sun, and he drew it like in detail of what was there.
Wow.
And he was like 7 years old, you know what I mean? Like he will, and I was like, well, he's like, I'm not sure who he was, but I could tell he was super serious. It wasn't, oh, this is my imagination and now I tell a story.
Mhm.
It was like, I've just seen it, and he's
Yeah.
just walked down the hallway. And the morning of his birthday, yeah. So I really think that our children have inherit certain abilities for sure. And I
Hmm.
think that just being a different generation and a different level of consciousness that they already bring in, that I believe that it continues to develop. But I love hearing also about psychic mediums kids and what they're aware of, and it's just so much more free for them, right? Especially at that age. And it's funny to see the way that it's developed because now he's a little bit like, oh, it's a bit hippie, mom. Oh, he's 16,
Yeah.
right? So he's a full teenager, and
Yep.
a little bit hippie. But even those instances of being that young, you can see it in them. They're like, oh, no, that's you can see that it's still there. Like you can see that they have an understanding that maybe they don't believe it entirely, maybe they don't understand it, but it's there, right? It's deeply woven within the soul's expression. So I love it. I love hearing stories like that,
It
and I love
is.
telling that one.
Gosh, I love
Um,
it.
yeah, beautiful. All right, so tell me about when you were like, okay, you had that call. She said, come on
Yep.
and train up, which is by the way awesome. Come
Hmm.
on and train up. And then you can go about it. What was the first experience you had when you gave your first proper psychic mediumship reading? And not necessarily like for a paying client, but if it was it, that's fine. But when it was at least serious and they were coming and you were able to like give your first reading. Tell me about that experience.
Oh, oh, that's so interesting. So, I mean, the first reading I ever gave was again like that first class of my mediumship class. And it was
Yeah.
so wild because who ended up coming in was so she taught me how to turn on, she taught me how to connect, and it was just like, okay, whatever, what are
Okay.
chakras? I don't even know what chakras are. um and so I connected, and you're kind of in this like guided meditative trance like state, and
Mhm.
I could just see the color red. And then I started seeing um I'm still in this trance, and obviously it was supported by spirit at the time, but I could look down at my arms and I saw that they were old and wrinkly, like, and they were
Mhm.
really thin. And like,
Very
so
cool.
I'm actually looking at my arms, but in my mind, it's being interpreted completely different. And so my mind is seeing something than what is physically in front of me.
Right.
And so the fact that I'm kind of seeing these colors, I'm like seeing in the 3D my arm transform, and then I kind of back up and I see this old woman with gray curly hair, and then she proceeds to like walk me into her neighborhood, her garden, and show me like her grass and her house, and then it was gone, and like with like
Wow.
picture perfect clarity.
Right.
And I'm laughing
Right.
about this because I don't even know what I'm saying when I'm seeing this. So like, so
Right.
this all feels like I'm making it up. It feels like my imagination, like I'm crazy. And so I relay all of this to my teacher, and she's like, "Oh, that's my old neighbor. That's my neighbor. She loved
That's
the color red. She lived
mhm.
in my neighborhood. She had a beautiful garden. That was her pride and joy." And I'm
Right.
just like, holy shit, right? Like,
It's
like
wild,
holy
right?
shit. So from that moment on, and
Mhm.
it's really funny
Mhm.
because once I realized I could do it, there was no hesitation in my mind that I wasn't meant to do this work. There was
That's
no
excellent.
hesitation.
Excellent.
I didn't even stop to think that this could be a fun hobby. Absolutely not. Like, I immediately ran into, this is where my new direction is. And it came from when my daughter was a baby. And I'm going to
Mhm.
say I had my first mediumship experience. And so my daughter was probably like 6 months old. I dropped her off at daycare. I took the day off of work, and I drove 2 hours north to who my friend said was the best medium she had ever been to. And I was like, cool, I'm going to go get a reading. I was on her wait list for a
Wow.
year before she had an opening for me. So a year later, I was quite pregnant when I booked the appointment. A year
Yeah.
later, 6 months, my daughter, 6 months, I drive up to this location in Maine,
Mhm.
and I sit down. Now, mind you, like, She has my phone number. I pay in cash. Like
Mhm.
that's it. She doesn't know who I am. She's
Right.
first name, phone number. I go and sit in this office building, which is so funny to me because she was like part of that like little complex. So you have to like walk upstairs in this little corridor, wait outside in this little
Right, I
corridor.
know the type,
And she
yeah.
has one little room that she rents
Mhm,
out of this space. She brings me in.
mhm.
I'm probably gonna cry. Sorry, it's all the emotions
Alright.
coming through.
Please do.
She starts talking, I bawl. I am
You feel it.
sobbing the entire time.
Yeah.
And the reading that she gave me
Mhm,
was all like my dead mother-in-law came through, my aunt came through, like it like
mhm.
with names and accuracy and like what did she passed of
Amazing.
the messages. Like I walked in there like thinking mediumship was real and thinking that, heaven existed or there's life on the other side. I walked out knowing it.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
so having that shift in me and being able to walk out knowing it was real was the most profound
Mm,
life altering experience ever because at that point I knew this was a game. I just
mhm.
needed to make it through it. I knew that there was no ending to this story, that life continues on. And so that brought me such immense like peace and comfort and joy. And I've always told my husband, I was like, if I could do that,
Right?
right.
Yes. I feel you 100%, girl. If I can have the honor to walk into that and to
Yeah,
walk with that in this incarnation, like, holy smokes, how fortunate.
right.
Yeah, 100%. And let me like to just like go
Whoa.
ahead and give you so many accolades because I feel that what that experience was is like, and you see it permeate through all of your readings, Nicole.
Yep.
Like the readings that you give of spirit, I'll speak specifically about spirit communication and mediumship. There, the soul level beauty of who you are, how ethical you are, how the person in front of you, how you see them and you see what this work can do for them comes out in every reading that you do, Nicole, and everyone that you put for all of us on Instagram and on the interwebs.
Oh,
It's
you're so
like no
sweet.
matter what, like that, the profound experience that you had of being told that you were a medium and then going to see
Yeah.
the medium that you spoke of, like from that day, you've carried that with you, and you see it in every reading. So I really commend you. I have a great
Oh,
deal of respect for that because
oh,
this is like the greatest. It's the greatest indicator of the human experience as a soul first, as a celestial
yeah,
being first, and it's also the greatest message of this work is healing. Like this
yeah.
work is healing on
It
many
is
different levels, right?
so healing.
On so many different levels. So
Yep.
I'm so happy you had that as part of your origin story because you see it unfold in all of your readings, Nicole. It's beautiful to
Oh,
watch.
oh,
Love
you're so sweet. Thank you.
it.
Yeah,
You're
and this
welcome,
is
babe.
what it's like working with me. I just start crying. Like it's so funny because I don't cry anywhere else. So thank you
Right.
for
It's like
but
it's like a massive effect on the
it's
body, right? On the channel of the vessel.
huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm so grateful I get to be that for my clients. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful I get to be that for other people and just showing
Yeah.
them that this is a game and all you have to do is open up to the possibility that like God, source, universe wants us to be happy. They want us to be fulfilled. They want us to live our dream life. And yeah, we're here to learn, but we're here to have fun too.
That's right, right?
Yep.
Happy human life is a big part of why we come, right?
Yep.
Beautiful. I love that. Oh, thank goodness
Yep.
for medium. You hear about mediums going to mediums, right? And
Yes.
that first reading that you have,
Yep.
and the first one that sends you on that path. So I love hearing about them. I'll share mine just because it's an opportunity to
Yeah.
share it because I know that you'll like it and I know the listeners will too.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
So I'll talk about my first reading too, and it's not too long. They go hand in hand. So
Yeah.
much like you, I can look back now on my childhood and I bear some of the hallmarks that I've heard a lot of psychic mediums had as well. Petrified of the dark, couldn't sleep,
Oh,
like when it was dark, right? Probably slept for the first time by myself when I was 5. Like when my parents kicked me out of their bed, I went and slept with my brothers, and then they kicked me out. Yeah, I was like, leave the bathroom light on, leave my door open,
man.
and
Both of these resonate with me. I've never heard this before. Keep going.
lovely, lovely. So I hear that from psychic mediums all the time. We're always
Really?
afraid of the dark. Oh yeah. And I was, when I look back now too, like and I don't know that psychic mediums have this all the time. I'd be super curious if you did. But
Yeah.
I really thought from the age of about, like 15 and onwards, that everybody's relatives who had passed over came and visited them in their dreams. I thought that was like what everybody did. I really thought that was like
Ooh.
normal status quo. And I only found out later that some of my psychic medium peers that I talked to, like, oh yeah, I noticed it, but it's not like something that I see everywhere. But that was definitely a part of my early childhood experiences, right? Of people coming and like literally like chatting and having messages and not just like, oh, I'm dreaming of you symbolically, like sitting and speaking like we are today, right? And so
Wow.
those are definitely some of the loving the Bewitched, loving the Wizard of Oz, loving Star
Yep.
Trek, right? Like I forget what
Yep.
her name was, but Lydia or something like this, one of the officers where she was like the empath on board and she could help the ancient civilizations and Jean-Luc Picard like relied on her to be able to be like the empath. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That psychic awareness. So when I look back, I'm like, okay, yeah, that was the next hint. But I was
Mhm.
largely like the work of mediumship came to me in my mid 30s without any inclination that I could do it or that this would be a part of my experience. And the
Mhm.
way that it came is that I went to a medium, had a reading, had a profound experience with her as well, just as you state,
Yep.
where I was like, okay, everything that and many different psychic experiences had happened to me up till that reading with her. And
Yep.
then she was kind of like, okay, you are aware that this is like within your ability, right? And I'm like, hey, I don't know. I'm here because I've had this and this and this happen. And
Yep.
she's like, she was trained by old Celtic witches, you know what I mean? Like she would lock the door in her sessions. She was strict. She wouldn't allow you to like, how you can hold on to a photo or hold on to an object to someone that's passed. She's like,
Yep.
that is a crutch. You're not allowed to use it in my classroom. She was like of the old school, right? I think
Yeah.
probably trained at the SNU, like all over, right? So anyhow,
Yep.
I went to her and she's like, "Yeah, you can do this." And I was like, "Really?" And so went to like a mediumship reading where they allowed you to practice, right? Walked up on stage, saw somebody. I'm like, did my grandmother's here? Did she look like this? Yes, she did. Did she have like these personality traits? Yes, she did. Did she
Wow.
die because her lungs filled with fluid? Yes, she did. I'm like, how do I know this? Like, what, like,
Right.
what is this? But then, as
Wow.
the healing unfolds and you deliver the message, I saw grief and therapy and so many like fear of death be erased in a matter of like minutes, right? What therapy
Yep.
would take 10 years to do took like 6 minutes in a reading. I was like, okay, this is powerful. I was like, now I'm interested. And that fast forward just a little bit further, my first psychic mediumship reading where it would turn into a reading, right? And it was a profound one because I'm mostly clairvoyant and claircognizant, but
Mm-hmm.
and I only get like clairaudience every now and again. But I was walking down the street, living in a city, heard someone say externally, there was no one there. And I was like, oh, okay. And at that point, I'm like, that's clairaudience. That's not my imagination. I'm not making it up. Like
Yep.
when you get there, right? And so I was like, okay, noted. And I'm walking down the street. I'm going to a bookshop here in the city where I'm locals. I walk in, and there, clairvoyantly in my mind's eye, I see this woman who had passed away. And she was very young. She was like early 20s. And I'm looking around and I see everybody subdued. I'm like, okay, how recently, you have to be super ethical. I'm like, how recently has this happened? I'm thinking in my mind.
Yep.
And like, let's be really aware not to bring this up. Like this could have happened like just a minute ago. And then, as some of my early psychic medium experiences happened to be, it was a traumatic death. And so she showed me that she had unfortunately asphyxiated from a drug overdose. And she
Oof.
showed all of that to me clairvoyantly. And I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, this is like coming through thick and fast. Yeah, Eva, she had first time in Europe had unfortunately decided to explore with drugs in a moment that unfortunately was too much for her body. And the
Wow.
reason why she had found me earlier in the day to tell me there was no one there is because there was no one there to help her and she had died alone. And so that was my baptism by fire of it is real. It can
Yeah.
happen on many different levels for the psychic medium. You have to practice really solid ethics. Like it had just happened the night before. And,
Yep.
of like how the humans that
Oh,
are
shoot.
here, oh yeah, the humans that are
Wow.
here are like, how should I talk about this now?
Hmm.
And because the room was full. And it was also of the just the connection of when we as souls incarnating as humans meet tragic endings like that and what it means for the soul and how they see it and what it means for the human. So that was a bit of a baptism by fire. And it
Mm.
was also the opportunity for me then to ask everybody in the room, hey, did this happen? They were like, yeah, Claire, it actually happened that way, exactly as you said it. She took these drugs, unfortunately, and they were too much for her body. And so I was
Wow.
able in a quiet way to understand, this is real. This also
Right.
can bring incredible healing to individuals. And I ended up weeks later giving a reading to the boyfriend who had lost his girlfriend in that weekend. Yeah, many, many years later. And that opened up, and I'm real curious to ask you this question as a kind of segue
Yeah.
from that. So, what have been your experiences like with traumatic endings like that? And what of the healing have you seen unfold? Because after that one, spirit kind of got the message that I was willing to handle some like, traumatic things
Mhm.
and so I it was opening the door to a few more things of readings of that nature, even dying by suicide. So like what have been your experiences as a psychic medium of traumatic endings, how the soul talks about it from the world of spirit, and the
Mhm.
healing for those that are here, if that has been a part of your journey at all.
So interesting. Whenever there is a traumatic passing, spirit pretty much consistently has always shown me that they pull the soul out of the body before the trauma actually happens.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, I think I've seen some very, very traumatic passings. For the most part, they only give me what I need to relay. They don't overly burden me energetically, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
But there have been instances where they
Yeah.
actually made me feel what they felt,
Ooh,
and that was rough.
it's rough.
But I think it was more to show me that, again, like, they pull the soul out of the body, and the soul is kind of just nearby or above observing what happens.
That's right.
And it's been so interesting because in some instances, I would say, I don't think anyone gets stuck. So let me just caveat that
That's
by
right.
what I'm about to say. But I think there's some people that delay maybe going into their life review or moving fully into the spirit world, or moving, fully into wherever it is that we go.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that sometimes they move very quickly to that place. And then other times, when it's a very traumatic passing, they stick around. And I've seen
Yeah.
instances where people refuse to go with their spirit guide or team until like their funeral is done. They're like, absolutely not. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here with my loved ones. And I will go do that after at least my body is like buried in the ground.
That's right. Yeah. They want to
Yeah.
also talk about their funeral sometimes, They
Yes,
want to stick around and see,
absolutely.
like, how was I remembered? Interesting. Super interesting.
Absolutely. It is
Yeah.
so interesting. And everyone's has a different story, right? Like, and I think that's the beauty of working with, departed loved ones, is that every reading is different, but that is consistently something I've seen. I've never seen a soul that has actually like been through the traumatic passing. They always get to kind of skip that moment.
That's right. And when
Yep.
you were delivering those things for the person coming to you for the mediumship reading for the human, what have been like some of the experiences that you had with traumatic passings, but also with ones where, normal passings? What have been like the therapeutic level of what happens on a healing level for you?
I think it's it's so therapeutic knowing the biggest game changers, I want to say, from a mediumship reading have been, like, number one, people who just aren't even sure that it exists on
Yeah.
the other side, and just proving that, yeah, no, your loved ones are there. How on earth would I know that?
Right.
But also in terms of like healing the grief that comes with the traumatic passings, which we've covered, but also like the didn't get to say goodbye, what couldn't make it there in time.
Yeah.
Are they still mad at me? Do they are they still upset with me about like me cutting them off? And just being able to literally continue the conversation and give them soul level, unconditional love that I wasn't in pain. I'm not mad at you. I love you unconditionally. I'm still there every single day for you. And I think allowing people to see that there's the earthly burdens of guilt and the earthly burdens of unexpressed love, they're
Yes.
all gone on the other side. And so that I think is so transformative for people and allows people to just like drop their shoulders and take a breath and realize that again, there's so many more bigger things at play that we can't perceive or even begin to understand. And it allows them so much healing to finally let that go. That no matter what happened, that would have been the outcome anyway, and there's nothing you could have done to change it, and that they take responsibility for some of the things they did or said before their passing, and that they're sorry for it.
Yeah. No,
It's
as a
just
exactly.
I can't even
Yeah.
verbalize how. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Huge. Huge. And that's the word
It's wild.
transformative. Right? Absolutely transformative. Even in some of the more extreme cases that I talked about, like every single time it has been, it just felt good to hear that, Claire. It just felt nice to see what they were thinking before it unfolded. They heard me when I was like in the hospital saying goodbye to them. They saw that I did that at the funeral. It's just transformative, right? It's healing of such a
Yes.
cellular level. So that's one of the great gifts of the work. So I love hearing
Mm-hmm.
about different experiences. That lovely. And I guess another question that I have is,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll get to two that were submitted. Um, when you think about your
Ooh.
mediumship and but also the psychic aspect of it, right? How have you seen it shift since
Mm-hmm.
you brought the work online, and where do you see it going?
Ooh. I would say I was very tied to mediumship at the beginning, and I wasn't even sure if I could do psychic, and I wasn't sure if I could do all these different things.
I'm
And
laughing because I
so
thought
I
these
think
same
for
thoughts.
me, yeah. Everyone's like, you can do psychic work. And I was like, I know I can. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how to do that.
That's
Oh, you're a
exactly how
medium.
I
You know
felt,
how
and
to
I
do
laugh at
psychic.
myself
No.
now. I'm like, of course I could. Like
Yep.
and some in my mind, I'm like, well, how did I ever think that? But
Yeah.
I'm just chuckling because I had the same exact thought. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think that where I started was wanting to heal and help people grieve and process, the passing of their loved ones. But I'm personally just in terms of the work that I do, I truly do want to transform people at a
Mhm.
soul level. Like I want people to realize how strong they are, what their soul is like, why have you chosen this life? And so for me, this has really morphed into one. And by the way, it's no surprise because I literally did like change management transformation work for 20 years in corporate America. But I really want people to unlock like this matrix that they're in and allow them to see the bigger picture and bring in the gifts that their soul already has within you. Bring in the guidance of your departed loved ones, of your guides, of your ascended masters, of your team on the other side. And so I really just want people to live the best life they possibly can here, to allow you to as quickly as possible move through the lessons your soul has chosen for this lifetime so that you can enjoy your time here on planet Earth for as long as you can. So for me, this is really where I'm transforming into, is more guidance, support, healing, frequency upgrades that allow you to live your best life. Because I think that mediumship is wonderful. My team has always called it the gateway drug. It's the gateway
Mm.
spiritual drug.
That's true.
And it just allows you to just see there's so much more at play. There's so many more tools accessible to you as a soul to help you live your best life here. And so I want to unlock all of that for you. I want you to realize that that shitty relationship with your mom, like that was by your soul's design and there was purpose to that. And you don't have to get stuck in the negative guilt vibration energy. You can just accept that she played her role really well and move
Mhm.
on to what you're supposed to move on to. So, like, I just want people to move forward as fast as possible, the way that I always want to move forward as fast
I
as
know, right?
possible.
The way that you see it. I know, but it's great because this a similar path that I had too, of like when you understand, like, if mediumship, when you, as a psychic medium, when you go through those trials and tribulations of understanding that it is real, it is such a door opener. Because it's like, all right, if that's real,
Mhm.
then what is the higher meaning of why we come, right? And like, what do we bring with us,
Yeah.
and why do we keep coming back? And what are the challenges that we want to meet, and what are the amplifications of our soul strength? So I love that, and I love that mediumship got you there, and I love that your
Mhm.
entire human experience got you there, because I think it makes for an incredible
Mhm.
teacher. So I'm glad that you see it that way. That's lovely. All right,
Mhm.
let's go to some questions submitted. And you kind of already
Sure.
touched upon this one, but these are also from some of my mentorship students that study their own intuition. And they were saying, which clair is
Ooh.
strongest for you? And so maybe you can just describe how
Oh.
clairsentience and claircognizance like moves through your body and how you became aware of them, or however you think they are, how to
Oh my
explain it.
gosh. I have all the clairs. And they are all really strong. And so I don't know if I can pick one
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah,
And it's so interesting because I started with my clairvoyance and clairaudience, and I think that's where most people want to start with this journey because
right,
it's how we communicate in the 3D, right? We
yeah,
see and hear
sure.
things. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just really interesting because as I started my journey, um,
Mm,
clairsentience has always been my strongest clair. So like I would get goosebumps when people would talk about things. Like you just saw me freaking tear up even though I'm yelling at my
yeah.
team to cut the shit right in my head. And so like clairsentience has always been my strongest clair, but when I started I wanted clairvoyance and clairaudience so much that
Mm,
I just that's the only thing I was open to and
open
perceiving.
for.
And so I shut off essentially my other clairs, and then what my team did was shut off my clairvoyance and clairaudience like 3 months into starting becoming a medium. They're like, no, you can't. You need to learn your clairsentience. So I had to like relearn everything again from my
Mm-hmm.
so and this is what they've continuously done with me. When I'm leaning too strongly on one clair, they shut it off and force me into the other ones. And so that has allowed me 10 out of 10 don't recommend, by the way. It's freaking like torture. But it allowed me to become strong in all my clairs, like including like my smell. By the way, I've been smelling stuff all week
Mm,
nonstop. I don't even know what some of the stuff is. I'll smell like bacon and then
I
like
know, right?
what right, I can't even.
I know.
And then so I generally do use all the clairs. I think what's so interesting to me though is that everything eventually moves to clair cognizance. Like it moves
I
into the
agree.
knowing.
I agree.
Because you need the crutches of your other clairs to help you interpret what you don't trust that you know. And so
Right.
it's so interesting to me because I think even as I continue to lean on, and this is probably where I'm going, I'm probably slapping myself across the face right now with my team, even though I continue to lean on all of my clairs,
Mm.
ultimately I know that I'm a channel and that I should probably just be channeling all this stuff, but I don't, to be honest with you, because it's always a journey, don't fully trust it all yet.
Sure.
um and so yeah, so I think clear the channeling and the knowing is definitely more what's next for me. And it's so interesting because the knowing is such a wonky Claire, because at first you must get, by the way, your name is Claire. This must just be hilarious for you because it's
It
just like,
is.
she said my name. Oh, she said my name.
It's turning like, oh, there I am again. Or I'm text messaging and I want
That's
to
not an
say,
accident.
and then it comes up as
Yep.
clairvoyance. Yeah, yeah. Funny. And sometimes my team does it purposefully. It's hilarious.
um, but it was interesting because the Claire cognizance and knowing
Mm.
at first just came like it just came out without
Yeah,
any sort of recognition in my body. And that's typically
yeah,
how it does come out.
yeah.
However, more recently, it's been anchored in my energy. So, you know how I could tell you, like, the sky is blue and you know it to your bones, or like,
Yeah,
I know, like, just things that you know, right?
yeah.
I know my son was born on September 30th. I know this, right? Like, I met my husband and I knew I was going to marry him. You know, that feeling when you just know deep in your bones, deep in your gut? That is now how the knowing has started to surface for me. And so
Beautiful.
it's really interesting because it's almost like clairsentience combined with the claircognizance.
That's cool.
because you're feeling the knowing. And so
Yeah.
like it's so interesting how these clairs evolve and eventually like layer on top of each other. And then you're not making it up because you're feeling it in so many different ways at once. And I think that's
Right.
the coolest part about working with all your clairs.
That's right. And two become so defined, right? And they become so powerful and so clear. That's a great explanation of that. Thank you, Nicole. I know that people will
Mm-hmm.
really find that helpful. And you've spoken a little about this is other listener submitted questions. You've spoken a bit about it, but people are also very interested in guides. Who are my
Mm-hmm.
guides? How do I come and meet them? So, linking back to our little origin story, if you could walk us down your story of how did you meet your first guide? How did you know? What were the ways that they started to communicate? And how did your relationship with them evolve? Because I know people are
Oh
very
my
interested in
goodness.
that.
Oh, so this is an interesting one. I feel like I started everything backwards because I started with mediumship,
Yeah,
got my Reiki,
right.
and then tried to work with like my spirit guide team. And I was frustrated as hell at trying to meet my guides. Like I knew they were there.
Right.
And I was so frustrated. So literally every night for like a month, I would do meet your guide, guided
Mm-hmm.
meditations on YouTube. And I would force myself to literally just meditate for
Mm-hmm.
like hours every
Mm-hmm.
night. I can tell you how fruitful that was. It was not very fruitful
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know how to meditate. I didn't know how to slow
Sure.
my brain. Right.
Sure.
So eventually, I think sometime that month, I started seeing colors.
Yeah. I wanted to
Started
ask you if you
seeing,
saw color. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I started seeing colors first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw a person.
Okay.
And and then I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I still wasn't fully developed. I was this little baby medium, baby psychic, whatever it is.
Right.
So I ended up using a pendulum to learn more about my guide. And I started using tarot cards to
Fascinating.
learn more about my guide. So I would do like the yes, no questions. I would pull a tarot deck out and I would be like, what's the personality of my guide? And I
Very
pull
cool.
cards for it, right?
Very cool.
And it worked really well. And so I got to know my guides through my metaphysical tools, not necessarily me and my conscious knowing or my spirit communication ability. I will tell you at one point, I probably went certifiably insane because one does in this journey, at least at one
Sure.
point, at
Sure.
least. And that one night is when my clear audience turned on. I'd been waiting for it to turn on. So this was very early in my journey. So all of a sudden it was like a pop in my ear and I was receiving freaking
Cool messages.
paragraphs from my team. Like they were just literally talking in my head and I couldn't shut it off. So
Amazing.
that's how I was able to start talking with my guides more and working with my guides more. And they don't need to talk in paragraphs to me anymore, which is very nice.
Right. That is nice.
Um,
Yeah.
so it was definitely this journey of leaning on my tools. And then once I knew how to use my clairs more effectively or consciously,
Mm-hmm.
coherently, I don't know what the right word is, then I would use my clairs to do that. But it was really interesting because I think like everything in this work, it always backs up to getting validation externally from myself. And I think everyone needs this no matter where they are on their journey. And it's not like I need Claire, I don't need to like I need to build a session with you because I don't trust what's coming in. It's more like I
Right.
receive this. Can someone just validate that I'm not freaking crazy? And so when I would go to these meetings or when I would have these sessions and people would reflect back at me the information about my guide that I had uncovered that I had not shared with them, it helped me validate that what I was receiving was real. And that was true
Mm-hmm.
with the pendulum and the tarot cards too. Like the fact
Mm-hmm.
that people could meet my spirit guide and it lined up with what I pulled in the tools, it was very helpful.
That's
Um,
super
but it's
helpful, right?
but it's a
Mm-hmm.
journey. It's a
It is.
journey.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's for sure. But that's so cool that like, with the first introduction with tarot when you were 12, that would be a metaphysical tool that would put you on a path of like, meeting your guides and what have you. What are some of your favorite metaphysical tools while I have you on that subject? What do you
Oh my
still love
gosh.
to use?
Definitely here, we're gonna move the video for a second. Like
Yeah.
tarot cards, definitely.
Wow, that's great. I love
But
it.
I probably have about 50 decks, probably more than that at this point. So 100% the tarot and oracle cards. I still do have my pendulum. I don't really lean on it too much anymore. I did buy this new black
Yeah,
crystal ball last
I
week.
saw that. I saw
Um, don't really know how to use it yet. I'll figure it out. Um,
scrying. So cool,
scrying.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, deeply
Yep.
attuned. Yeah, dig it.
But I would say more the cards, and I do so my MO is definitely just spirit communication. So I really just do meditation and channeling and chatting with them for the most part though.
Yeah,
Mhm.
beautiful. That's lovely. I know people will love that answer, and especially when you are so new to understanding guides, guardians, angels, having such a formidable external tool as a metaphysical tool like a pendulum, it can be super helpful. So I love that you could explain that in detail for the listeners. Beautiful. Well, I could go on and on. I really could, but I want to take a moment just to say for anyone that's listening who's curious about your work, be it from a reading or any of the courses, how can they find you? And what are some of the things that you're offering now that they could be interested in?
Oh my gosh. Thanks. I'm on all of the socials. I think Claire's going to toss it in the show notes. I just have like a mediumnicole.com is my website. And if you do slash links, it has everything out there that I'm doing, all the socials. That's the easiest place to go get everything. So what's going on in my world right now is I've just relaunched my podcast. It's been going for a little over a year now, but the spirit wants me to shift it to spiritual experiments. So even those of you that are brand new at this is really just tapping into the collective, teaching you how to do some of these tools. Like this week, I have a guided meditation to say, can we make the veil thinner? Can you more easily access your departed loved ones? Right. Like next week coming up is like, what costumes does your soul wear? Like, what are some of the past lives your soul has done? Because each one of those past lives is its own
Whoa.
unique costume, right? And so
Okay.
they're having me kind of bring this science experimental thing
Mhm.
in and creating a community. So I'd love to see everyone there. It's called The Unity Code is the new podcast name. And then I have a 9-month spirit communication mentorship underway. That will be next launch September of next year. But I have so many things in the pipeline, private readings. I'm going to be launching an intuition um, monthly subscription class coming up, and there's some personal development mentorships coming up as well. So just like
Beautiful.
everything else in this work, it's always evolving, always changing. But
Right.
I'm feeling all the fun, excitement, and energy as more and more people open up to this space and need teachers and guides and readings. And so I'm just going with the flow of the energy at this point.
Absolutely. And what a fabulous kind of inclination and mindset to have, Nicole. 10 out of 10 recommend a personal one-to-one reading with you. A fabulous teacher. I know that all of your courses could be really for the intermediate or beginner alike fabulous. So I'll put all of the links there. 10 out of 10 recommend the podcast. Love hearing your experiments on there. Love hearing really what you're bringing to the work and how you see it, right? How the human perspective that you bring to the spiritual perspective. Love it. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Nicole. It was lovely to hear your origin story, and we will definitely have you back.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Claire. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.